The fact is that most of the major cities in Ukraine have now fallen into Russian hands. All the major cities, whether it be Zaporizhia, Kyiv, Melitopol, Odessa, Mariupol, Kherson, Kharkiv, it has been a direction in which Russia has come from 3 different borders while they are headed to the capital city of Russia. So it's only a matter of time. Of course, you've got the international community saying that we want restraint from both sides. Ukraine has been extremely clear. Condemnations and these sanctions are not having any effect on Russia. They need military intervention and boots on the ground. Dr. Mark Berenson, senior lecturer at the Russia Institute School of Politics and Economics at King's College, will be joining us in a while. We are joined by Major General Sanjay Soy, defense analyst, Dr. Swasti Rao, who is an associate fellow, Europe and Eurasia Center at the IDSA, and Dr. Vail Awad, who is a senior journalist. Dr. Swati, I want to first come to you. We wish well to people of Ukraine, but how long do you think the resistance is going to last? It has to be said, it's been a very gutsy resistance. You've got Russian soldiers whose pictures have been released, who have been captured. But how long will this resistance last?
Well, yeah, that's a very valid, I would say, worry, which we are all sort of, trying to get our heads around as to how long can it last. And but a larger question is that what really is Putin's end game, right? So the question about how long the resistance would last is directly related to what really is Putin wanting. So I think, in my opinion, Putin does not really want to invade the whole of Ukraine, because that kind of doesn't serve his purpose of creating Ukraine as a buffer state between, Russia and the NATO, the eastern flank. So basically what he wants is that, in my opinion, we should be prepared for a regime change. There is a lot of analysis around it. He would want a pro-Russian leader out there, somebody like Alexander Lukashenko of Belarus. So that is what he's looking at. But yes, in my opinion, he might go up to the Dnieper River, perhaps, which is far ahead than the regions that Russians control right now. So that could be, something that is one thing. And the other more important thing is that I'm not very sure whether he's going to stop at Ukraine, because that is the most important thing, that he might just not stop at Ukraine and perhaps now look at Moldova, because Moldova is a neighboring country, and Moldova, there's a thin slice of land out there which has a pro-Russian separatist movement going on. So Georgia, then Crimea, then Donbass, and now next could be Moldova. And after Moldova, there could be Balkans, because, in Balkans, West has not really been looking at Balkans so much. So those are the real worries that we have as to how far in Ukraine, and then is Ukraine, does he stop at Ukraine or does he go ahead? So that is where I would say the real fear lies, because we have seen that NATO is not going to send troops on the ground. US and UK and all these Western countries, they have been pumping Ukraine with some weapons that have not really been enough. And all the talks of sanctions would perhaps affect Russia in the longer run, but definitely not in the shorter run.
In fact, like someone remarked yesterday, that even if Russia has to endure a little bit of economic cost because of these sanctions, in order to fulfill their expansionist tendencies, they may be okay with suffering that. I want to take a quick reaction to that from Dr. Berenson, and then I want to show you just how close Russian troops are to Kyiv itself. The parliament of Kyiv could be in very real danger. Dr. Berenson, do you also agree that if today it is Ukraine, tomorrow it could be another region which Russia gets in its sights?
On that last question, very much so. Could be. We obviously cannot look into Putin's head, but Putin so far has succeeded in every military adventure that he has taken to date, going back to the late 1990s. And there's been no resistance that's been successful in stopping him. And if his motivations, which he seemed to lay out fairly clearly in an hour-long speech the other evening, that are to basically put back a country like Ukraine into the Russian Empire, then very well could continue on to other states like Moldova. Certainly Belarus is already very much in his camp. Who's to say that he could not poke into the NATO line across Eastern Europe? Moreover, I think it's really clear to emphasize that what Putin wants and has been striving for the last 22 years while he's been in power is not necessarily to be against the independence of states like Ukraine, but as long as they are subject to the will and rule of Moscow. There are states in the former Soviet Union today, like Armenia and Moldova, parts of Moldova and certainly Belarus, that have acceded to the rule of Moscow to some extent. Putin isn't opposed to Ukraine being independent. Of course, that independence now is very much in question and is too late to guarantee.
All right, Dr. Berenson, I'll just stop you for a second there to give an idea to our viewers exactly what is the position of Russian troops when it comes to Kyiv itself. Barely 12 kilometers. If they want, they could be at the Ukrainian parliament in less than 15 minutes. There is the parliament of Ukraine, and Russian tanks are already seen driving through Obolon. One wonders how long it is going to take and what they are waiting for. General Soy, can you throw light on that? Any layperson would think if it's 12 kilometers, it would be a matter of what, 10 minutes?
Having lived several years in Kyiv myself, Obolon is a part of Kyiv. It's a subway, a metro ride away from the capital center. Clearly, the main objective of Putin is to detopple the regime in Kyiv. That means getting rid of those who are in power now. And we have President Zelensky currently remaining in the center of Kyiv. He wants to replace Zelensky and others with those that he has chosen, or those who will align and agree to having Moscow subjugate Ukraine to its will.
So Doctor, again, with the greatest of respect to the people of Ukraine, and we wish for the safety of President Zelensky, you think that this is headed towards an eventual replacement, maybe in the next few hours, of the government?
I don't know if it's going to be in the next few hours. There's several key factors as to why this is not moving as rapidly as perhaps Putin would like. One is the Ukrainians are fighting quite hard, and in most areas of the country, they are still retaining territory, and they will put up a fight to the death. Ukrainians have not been welcoming of Russians ruling them throughout history, actually. I mean, it's a different history than what Putin relayed to the world the other night. But Ukrainians have been the most resistant to Russian authority, even during Soviet times. They were the most resistant republic. Yes. And they will fight to their death. They'll fight for their homeland. And
they are, sir. In fact, I want to just pull up those pictures of at least half a dozen Russian soldiers who were arrested, who were held captive, and several Russian soldiers, in fact, who have also been killed. Images that have come through the day of Russian tanks that have been destroyed by the Ukrainian forces fighting back. These were the pictures that were released, in fact, by the Ukrainian armed forces.
The second point I would raise is just what you mentioned, and that is that the Russian capabilities are limited. They're not unconstrained. They have not only just a limited amount of men and a limited amount of weapons, but once the proverbial body bags come back to Russia, and the Russian population, in just very recent surveys that were taken just before the invasion of Ukraine began yesterday, showed that only about half of them are mildly supportive of such an adventure of going into Ukraine. Many Russians don't know today that Kyiv is under attack. They may have been under the impression through their media that the Ukraine invasion was only going to take place in and around the Donbas region. This is much greater than that. They may not be told, but they will find out. And moreover, Russian soldiers are being asked to sign contracts, rumors have it, at the border that they are going to fight against Ukrainian soldiers, not just try to provide a defensive measures, that they're going to be offensively attacking Ukrainian soldiers. And this is providing for some, this is another layer of difficulties on the Russian side. Added to that, we don't know what the West is going to do.
Yes, we'll come to the West in just a second. I also want to get in Dr. Wael Awad, but before that, let's listen in, just talking about the kind of offensive which is there from Russia and the fight back. Hours ago, in fact, a journalist for APTN recorded the moment where a missile was zooming towards the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. Watch.
Fighter jets are literally not buzzing the city, but they're in the air above this space, and there hasn't been fighter planes here in years. And I really do believe that they've already dropped bombs in Kramatorsk. Like I say, I believe it because there's been huge explosions, which I don't think were from Arty. I didn't hear any incoming or anything, but just massive explosions. 3 just near where I am, and it's crazy. I can't believe that Russia has declared war on Ukraine. That as soon as the declaration... There you go. Oh, that's a missile. Missile.
That was one of those like...
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
all right, we've got to get inside. I can't believe that.
We're out, dudes. Oh, maybe we'll say.
Let's just get on the truck. Are you good? There's cruise missiles or something flying above the city right now. Okay.
Huge respect for journalists who are still on the ground reporting from the front lines. Dr. Wael Awad, how long do you think the resistance is going to hold out?
I think it's a matter of days only, because there's no match between the giant Russia and Ukraine on the other hand, especially when the West and the United States have ditched them and they have not been able to support them because they are not member of NATO. So therefore, I think it's just a swift operation by the Russians where they wanted to make sure that they topple this regime if it doesn't come to terms with their own with their own declaration for the future. And we do not have to see it from the angle. I'm definitely an advocate, the anti-war advocate in any way. But I would say that the provocation also for Russia, ever since the disintegration of the Soviet Union and the NATO ambition to join Ukraine and Georgia, have forced the Russians into this kind of provocative measure that they have to go on to. I don't want to justify it, but that's what the ultimate goal of it. Because I still remember Brzezinski, the former American national security advisor, when he went to Afghanistan and he started the jihad there, and he was the same fellow who said that Ukraine would be the sword in the hand of the West against Russia. So therefore, we need to see this from a wider perspective if we have to understand the geopolitical fallout of this operation. If the Russians wanted to finish this operation swiftly, they don't want it to be another Afghanistan, then we may see a quick end to this war, because I think now there are lots of olive branches coming out, whether it is from the American side, we saw the lowering tone, even the West, even the Ukrainian president, even the Putin himself is talking of extending a hand and finishing off this crisis. And I think we are going to see a very soon end to this operation once the Russians achieve their objective.
Interesting. You say that there is an olive branch, but will Russia be willing to accept that olive branch given the kind of reverses that have been faced by both sides? But speaking of the resistance, remember, civilians have been asked to enlist, to pick up arms. Over 10,000 sites across Ukraine have been identified where civilians, those who are able-bodied, can come and take arms. And it's women also who came to the front lines as Russian troops marched into their cities. Here's how.
This is no ordinary confrontation. This is one of the most formidable videos seen in recent times. It was filmed in the port city of Henchesk, less than 18 miles from the annexed Russian territory of Crimea.
Які вчення? Звідки ви? Які вчення? Ви що, росіяни?
Да.
Якого хера ви тут робите?
Ну, сейчас наш с вами разговор ни к чему не приведет.
Вы оккупанты, вы фашисты, вы пришли на нашу землю.
Хорошо.
Какого хера вы пришли с оружием к нам?
Кто сказал?
Возьмите семечки, положите сырыми,
Хорошо.
чтобы хоть подсолнухи росли, когда вы здесь ляжете.
Сейчас наш разговор ни к чему не приведет. Давайте не будем усугублять эту ситуацию. Пожалуйста.
Как усугублять
Пожалуйста,
ситуацию?
не будем усугублять ситуацию. Наш с вами
Ребята,
разговор ни к чему не
ребята,
приведет.
положите в карманы
Ничего не
семечки.
решит наш с вами разговор.
Я поняла, положите семечки или
Хорошо.
семена цветов. Вы здесь семенами
Я
ляжете.
сделаю.
Вы
Да,
пришли на мою землю.
Хорошо, я вас выслушал.
Вы понимаете?
Я вас
Вы
выслушал.
оккупанты.
Хорошо.
Вы враги.
Да.
И вы уже с этой секунды прокляты.
Да,
Я вам отвечаю.
все. Теперь послушайте меня.
Я вас услышала.
Не будем усугублять ситуацию, пройдите.
А куда уже усугублять? Вы пришли, блядь, непрошенные твари, конченые.
The plucky woman continued to insist he takes the seeds of the sunflower, the national flower of Ukraine. The video has sparked an outpouring of emotional comments on social media. But the Russian invasion of Ukraine continues as the West sticks only to sanctions. A TOI online report.
General Soy, what do you make of the fight back?
In fact, Padmaja, absolutely right. I would agree with the previous speakers, and I would like to add that Ukrainian army has been better trained what it was in 2014. They have been better armed. They have been given anti-tank weapons, anti-aircraft weapon system, and they have a conscription system, territorial army, and except the Donbass region, in other part of the Ukraine, like in the west Ukraine and Kyiv area, they are not with Russia, they are against Russia. The fighting spirit which has been shown, and I would also say the leadership quality which has been shown by the Zelensky. He said, I'm the first target, but I'm not going to run away.
Yes.
I'm going to remain here. That probably is keeping the people going, and they're giving a good fight, and probably that could be the reason that Russians are going deliberately. The aim of the Putin was to carry out a very, very swift operation, very fast operation. That's how the amount of forces that assembled, more than 160,000 troops, the tanks, the aircraft, the warships. And
Okay, so you say it's the resistance which is holding him back, Dr. Rao. Do you agree? Is it the resistance, or is it that Putin is now waiting to see how everyone reacts and taking his time before actually taking over Kyiv?
No. It is not the
Dr. Rao.
resistance. Yeah.
Okay. No, I agree with the larger point that basically Ukraine is putting up a very tough resistance, and there's one point that we've not really been looking at, which is the sea, right? So I don't know, if there's an update that you've followed, is that Russia has completely cut off Ukraine from sea as well.
Yes.
And if you're aware of the map, you see that there is a smaller sea of Azov, and then a little south to that is the Black Sea. Okay, so what Russia has done is that Russia has blocked Ukraine's access to Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. And why are these important? Because all the Ukrainian economy is, dependent on that. And for many months, Russia kept saying that we are only here for joint military drills, etc., for the naval exercises, but now we know the reality behind it. But you know what? I really find this to be mentioned, that, instead of getting intimidated, of course they are intimidated. We are totally seeing the kind of pictures that are coming and the details that are coming. But the Ukrainian foreign minister has said that the Sea of Azov is now completely blocked and Black Sea is cut off. But at the same time, they have now requested Turkey, because Turkey has two waterways in the, towards the south of the Black Sea. And these two waterways are, the Bosphorus waterway and the Dardanelles Strait. So they're saying that please close them down so that Russia doesn't use them to come to us, because the east of that side is already gone. There's Crimea and there's the, Russian Black Sea fleet. So what I'm trying to say is that the fact that Ukrainians have been able to put up a resistance against, much bigger, mightier, Russian force is something that needs to be kept in mind. As far as the timing of it is concerned, and I think that is perhaps the bottom line of today's debate also. Honestly, I feel that Putin has everything planned out, and he has been planning for it. In fact, I think a couple of days ago or today, Emmanuel Macron of France, sounding very upset about the fact that he made, that effort of going to visit, Putin, and then he was just talking about the dialogue format and the Normandy format, while at the same time preparing for an invasion. So I think Putin has actually planned out everything to the last detail.
Yes. You mentioned about that visit, because a lot is being said also about the visit of Imran Khan at the very moment when Russian troops were marching into Ukraine, and Mr. Khan was talking about exciting times sitting in Moscow. I'm having to stop for a very, very short break at this point. Please bear with me, because on the other side, we are going to get you a live update from what is happening on Ground Zero, Ukraine.